Today we're going to be looking at the Neuroendocrinology of Behaviour. If you're already familiar with this subject, then look on this as revision and bringing you up to speed with the necessary knowledge that you need to move on to the next phase, which is the neurobiology of behaviour. And in this topic, we'll be looking at two subtopics, which are the regulation of hormones by the brain and the regulation of the brain by hormones. And starting with the first subtopic, regulation of hormones by the brain. In this section, we'll be looking at the definition of neuroendocrine systems, definition of hormones, hormone production, neurotransmitters and hormones, regulation of neuroendocrine systems, pituitary gland regulates the peripheral glands and how it does that. Look at the hormonal systems in the body, the types of hormones, and hormone receptors in cells. And firstly, the neuroendocrine system definition. So basically, neuroendocrine systems are sets of neurons, glands, and non-endocrine tissues. The neurochemicals and hormones they produce, which send and receive signals, and which function in an integrated manner to collectively regulate a physiological or behavioural state. The definition of a hormone is hormones are chemical messengers that are secreted directly into the blood. They influence the performance of their related bodily organs, for example, development and growth, metabolism of food, reproductive activity, cognitive and emotional functions, and maintenance of body temperature. Now, hormone production, hormones are secreted from endocrine glands in the body, and they are secreted directly into the bloodstream rather than through ducts. And the glands that are included in the system are the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, the thyroid, thymus, adrenal glands, the pancreas, ovaries in females, and testes in males. Now, neurotransmitters and hormones. Well, neurotransmitters travel across synapses between brain cells or neurons and influence the next neuron in line, while hormones travel in the bloodstream. Now, the three major differences between hormones and neurotransmitters are that hormones work slowly, more slowly than neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters communicate only with neurons, but hormones influence every cell in the body and can be secreted from various parts of the body. Now, the regulation of the endocrine system. The hypothalamus is the centre of the endocrine system, and the limbic system has an influence on the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus also secretes hormones which regulate the pituitary gland. Now, the pituitary is the master gland, and it's called the master gland because it produces hormones that control many different processes in the body. It senses the body's needs and sends signals to different organs and glands throughout the body to regulate their function and behaviour and maintain an appropriate body environment. Now, the pituitary regulates peripheral glands. So under the influence of the hypothalamus hormones, the anterior and posterior pituitary glands release hormones to regulate the hormone secretion from peripheral glands in the brain. And the body has hormonal systems under partial control by the brain as well. For example, insulin is produced by the pancreas and is triggered by blood glucose and or the parasympathetic nervous system by the expectation of food. So that's both the body and the brain being involved in secreting those hormones. Now, the body also has hormonal systems that are not controlled by the brain. For example, under conditions of high blood pressure, the heart releases a hormone to tell the kidneys to produce more urine and reduce the fluid level in the blood. There are two types of hormones. We have steroid hormones and amino acid hormones. And amino acid hormones are protein-based. Of course, the steroid hormones are steroid-based. Now, every cell has a hormone receptor or receptors, and then they are critical to the endocrine system. So the hormones bind to the receptors and trigger events in the cell. Amino acid hormones influence the activity of proteins already contained in the cells. Steroid hormones alter the synthesis of new proteins in the cells. So the difference is with the amino acid hormones, they are involved in the production of proteins, and they are influencing the activity of proteins, whereas the steroid hormones are involved in the creation of proteins. Now, the amount of hormones in the system, a particular hormone, is critical, and they're only present in microscopically small amounts. However, mutations in cell receptors can have serious consequences for the functioning of that body system. So that's the end of the first section, the regulation of hormones by the brain. And now we're going to move on to regulation of the brain by hormones. And in this section, we'll be looking at the effects of hormones on the brain, how hormones can create and destroy neurons, how hormones can change neural networks, and the effect of hormones on the body and behavior. Now, the effects of hormones on the brain, they can alter protein function and synthesis. That's one of their functions. And they can alter neurotransmitter actions. They can interfere with the facilitate the action of neurotransmitters. So during short-term stress, glucocorticoid hormone causes an increase in dopamine, which results in pleasurable effects. During long-term stress, dopamine levels become depleted and anhedonia results. And anhedonia is the total inability to feel pleasure. And moving on to hormones can create or destroy neurons. Estrogen can create new neurons, whereas glucocorticoids can destroy existing neurons. And that's why stress is so dangerous to the body, or long-term stress, because glucocorticoids are very much involved in stress, and they can do damage to the structure of the brain. Now, hormones can change neural networks. These changes can either increase or decrease connections in a neural network. And remember, the overall function of the neural network is a product of how many connections it has. The more connections, usually the more functionality of the network. The less connections, the less functionality. Now, estrogen increases the number of connections, whereas glucocorticoid decreases the number of connections. And the effect of hormones on the body and behavior, an array of hormones released by the gastrointestinal tract and associated organs regulate the appetite for food. Whereas hormones do not cause behavior, they merely alter a pre-existing behavioral tendency. So that's important to realize. And one good example of that is testosterone. Testosterone has been wrongly accused of creating or making men more aggressive. In fact, it doesn't. All it does is, if a man is already aggressive, testosterone will make him more aggressive. So it will not make a non-aggressive man aggressive. It will only increase an aggression in a man where it already exists. And we will find out eventually that neural networks are triggered by environmental situations. So a man could have a neural network for aggression, and all males do to varying degrees. However, whether the hormone works on it depends upon whether that neural network has been triggered. If the neural network has not been triggered by the environment, then the hormone will have no effect. That's the testosterone will have no effect. It won't make the man aggressive. It only makes the man more aggressive. And the same, of course, applies to the female hormones. It makes female behaviors more so rather than creating them. It doesn't create the behaviors. It merely makes them bigger or lesser, depending on the amount of hormone involved. Okay, well, that's all for today. Next time we'll start on our journey through the neurobiology of behavior as we head towards the study of evolutionary psychology. Bye for now.